Well, let's take a view on China now, which is one of Venezuela's biggest allies, and it's condemned the US action. Beijing says it violates international law and the country's sovereignty.
外交部发言人昨天表示，中方对美方
China is deeply shocked and strongly condemns the US blatant use of force against a sovereign state and action against its president. Such hegemonic acts of the US seriously violates international law, Venezuela's sovereignty, and threatens peace and security in Latin America and the Caribbean region.
Over to Shanghai in China now, where we can get more from Shaun Rein. He's the founder and managing director of the China Market Research Group, which is a market intelligence firm focused on China. Shaun, welcome. So Beijing says this needs to be resolved through dialogue and through negotiation, that Maduro should be released, but that is clearly not going to happen, and China knows that. So how will the administration there be looking to shape Venezuelan relations, given it is the biggest buyer of Venezuelan oil?
It's good to be here, Nick. I think China has said very strong condemnation of the United States, and they're working with other Latin American and Caribbean countries to say this isn't right. This sets a very dangerous precedent, not just in Latin America, but also throughout the world. What if a president doesn't like what President Trump wants? Does that mean the United States can just kidnap and hold hostage the president, plunder the natural resources? You know, again, Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world. So it's clear that this is about oil, that this is about power, this is about a Trump replacing the Monroe Doctrine with the Trump Doctrine to say that the United States is the only player that has the right to decide what's going to happen in its hemisphere. It's a very dangerous precedent. Now, what is China going to do? There's not a lot of things that China can do, frankly. It doesn't have the military power. It only has 2 military bases outside of the United States, while America has 800. Historically, China is not warlike. They have not shot a single bullet outside of its borders in the last 40 years. So I think, frankly, at the end of the day, China is just going to make proclamations criticizing the United States actions, but they're not going to push back with military action, and they're probably not going to push back with economic sanctions. So frankly, China is just going to have to sit and wait and try to build a coalition to criticize Trump in these actions, because this sets very dangerous precedent.
Right. Well, it will have to move diplomatically at some point, presumably, because if a more, let's say, a more US-friendly government materializes out of this whole business in Venezuela, China will need to recalibrate, right?
It will have to recalibrate, and you're already starting to see that in Latin America over the last couple months since Trump came to power. Relations with Trinidad have gotten a lot colder. Relations with Mexico have gotten a lot colder. So China was really building a bulwark into Latin America over the last 4 years, with a lot of Latin American leaders saying, we don't like Biden, we didn't like Trump 1.0, we want to move closer to China's orbit. But what you've seen in the last 6 months, Nick, is Trump has made big stands in Latin America, with Panama, with Mexico, with Trinidad, all criticizing their close relations with China. So all of these countries are now nervous about whether or not their leaders are going to be held hostage and kidnapped the way Maduro was. I've been speaking with a lot of political leaders the last 24 hours, and they're worried that they might be next if they go against the United States. Because again, China, I don't think, has the military power to really, or the desire to push back against the United States right now, Nick.
All right. And what about this one? There are a lot of lines drawn from this to Taiwan. Does this event, do you think, make any difference in China's approach to Taiwan? People are saying China perhaps might be emboldened, having observed the US nipping in and decapitating Venezuela's leadership without any questions asked.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there was a deal. I don't think there was, that the United States could take Venezuela, China could take Taiwan and the semiconductor sector there. But I'm not particularly worried about aggressive military action from China into Taiwan. I think China clearly wants to reunify, but they want to do it peacefully. And they're going to bide their time. You know, they're building very close relations with the Kuomintang, or the KMT, which is the opposition party. And they're going to bide their time and wait, because there's a likelihood that the KMT will win the next presidential elections. China historically does not want to be warlike and use military power. And so I don't think that there's a grand bargain or a grand deal where, you know, Putin can take Ukraine, Xi can take Taiwan, Trump can take Venezuela. I think this was just about America flexing its muscles and once again wanting access to oil. Again, why, if it's all about narco-terrorism, if it's all about cocaine, why did the United States under Trump pardon the former president of Honduras who was found guilty of narco-terrorism and narco-trafficking into the United States? This, frankly, from the Chinese side, is all about oil and power, Nick.
And finally, Shaun, briefly, if you would, on this issue of the spheres of influence that you alluded to there, and that the Monroe Doctrine that you mentioned, or Donroe, as Trump would have it, he's taking care of his own backyard by doing this, capturing Maduro in Venezuela. Might that mean more of a US withdrawal from Pacific affairs and support of the likes of Japan and the Philippines?
Yeah, I think the United States doesn't have the finances. We've got 39 trillion US dollars in debt to make a big move militarily in Asia, but I think they're going to continue by selling arms. They just sold 11 billion US dollars to Taiwan. They're talking with Bongbong Marcos, the president of the Philippines, about opening more military bases. Frankly, if I was Denmark right now, I would be nervous, because I think it's clear that Trump will want to take Greenland for the rare earth deposits that are in Greenland. So I think, they're going to make a deal of sorts with Xi. There's still going to be tension, but I think the biggest tension is going to be in Latin America, Greenland, and in Europe, frankly. I'd be nervous if I was a Danish politician, and extremely nervous if I was in Mexico, Trinidad, Colombia right now, if you were not a vassal of Trump.
Good to get your perspective there, Shaun. Thanks very much for that. That's Shaun Rein speaking to us there from Shanghai. Thank you.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news, expert insight. Like, share, stay ahead.